Welcome back to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where we invite professionals in their fields to educate and inspire the community to feel healthier, more balanced and live a life they love. And today for the whole episode we have a viewer's request, Pauline Healy here talking about aged care and the new regulations. What led you into this area of expertise?
Well, originally I worked in the health industry for many years, and I like a challenge, and aged care has certainly given me that. I just felt it was really important to help families understand what is out there, how I can help, and guide them through that process. So I worked in an aged care facility for many years, and then went out into my own business for 4 years now. So I've been helping families throughout the whole transition process, which is really special to me too.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. So that really is about this new reform, really. It leads into that new reform, is that it's about that time?
Yes. So I had the pleasure of the initial 2014 new reform. What that brought about were a few changes for, one of the changes was ageing in place. So instead of there being a section of low care and high care for residents, they now start in the same room and they can stay there, which can lead into palliation as well. So all types of care, not having to change facilities where they build up friendships and socialisation. So that was a really good measure.
And Pauline, what about the bond to RAD that we hear about?
Yeah, so that can be very confusing for some viewers as well. There is a bond that is payable. Now, it used to be called a bond, and in the new reform it got changed to a RAD, which does mean refundable accommodation deposit. There's also DAC, RAC and DAC, and DAP. So there's a few acronyms. We won't use them here today. And what I will do is in our next week, I'm actually going to come back and talk to you in more detail about all the costs of everything to do with aged care. So please do come back and tune in. The difference between a bond was that the bond did hold 10% retention. So therefore the consumers would lose 10% of their payment in, and that would be over a 5-year period. Now they pay a refundable accommodation deposit, and if they pay the required amount all up front, then that is 100% refundable. And yes, the question often is it government guaranteed? Yes, it is government guaranteed, so it's secure. And then if you didn't have that particular amount of money, you can actually pay what they have as an interest only payment. So it's almost like a buy and rent situation. But as I said, we'll get more into that later. Another one of the changes for the new reform was consumers would now contribute to their cost of care. So previously there was a flat fee of 85%, or what equated to 85% of a single pension. That's what people would pay daily for their care. Now that includes things like their laundry, their food, their care, and the environment that they live in. So it's a very reasonable care to pay. It was around about $50 a day. Now with the new reform, the Living Longer, Living Better, consumers are required to contribute to their cost of care if they have the means. So what that means is that to look after somebody in aged care on a relatively medium level of care, it's around about $250 to $300 cost per day. So currently what you're asked to pay is $51.63 per day, and the government will fund the rest. But if you have the means, then you will contribute towards that fee, and that's called a means-tested care fee. So
for any for the viewers, for anyone who was putting into the aged care before, as opposed to now, if they don't have the funding themselves, then it's not much. or they don't have the funding, then it's not much difference. Is that correct?
Yes, so this is for people, this is for consumers that have got the funds. If they have got over $168,000 worth of assets or income, then they will pay a RAD, or what used to be known as a bond. For residents that or consumers that have under that amount, then they're called either a partially supported or a fully supported resident, and they're concessional, and they do not pay that. So all they will pay in aged care would be currently $51.63, which is 85% of the current single pension. And then and this is where we'll get into options on aged care, but there are other costs involved. If it's an additional services fee at that facility, and a little bit later on I will talk about your options and your choice in care, but they are the only two payments required if you're what they call a concessional resident. But the fact that we've got a home care system is good. The level of care that would provide somebody to be able to stay in their home if they were at the highest end of care would still only be 12 hours a week of care, and that includes the administration and care management costs. So it's not great. It really isn't. So therefore we still are looking at the end, a residential care situation. What we need to do is make sure that that's better. What we want to be able to look at for down the track is that our choice, our needs are going to be met. And so with the new Royal Commission and the new standards that are out now, which we have 8 standards as opposed to 4, it's all based around customer choice, consumer choice, about dignity and having involvement with the governing bodies that are making these rules. So, yeah.
Well, that's wonderful information. Yeah. Now we'll go on now to a break. So, and then we'll be back with Pauline for more information and education on aged care. Thank you.
Sure.
Welcome back, and more on aged care. So over to Pauline. Pauline, some viewers may be very confused about aged care, about the choices that are available, etc.
Linda, there are many choices with aged care now. We started with everybody used to go to their local council and ask, for some home help or support. Now, with the council have moved away from that. We have My Aged Care, which it's a one-stop shop basically, where you can go to the website and find information. It sometimes isn't that easy to decipher for yourself, and there are lots of people who can help, advocates for one. One of the interesting things is for home care is that you've got a community home support program. Now, the council will lead you towards that, and that will give you 45 minutes of home cleaning, or might give you, a maintenance person to clean your windows. Yes, so the community home support program is something that the council will provide for you, or some councils will, but the care and the support there is very limited. Yeah. So first up, we've got Commonwealth Home Support Program, which is limited care. Then we have Home Care Package. That's from level 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then we've got some residential respite, and then we've got permanent residential care. So they're your main types of care in Australia.
And what about the waiting periods? For many viewers out there, I'm sure that they're confused by all of this. It's very overwhelming for them.
Yes, yeah, it is. Look, home care package, there is an issue with that. To receive, well, first of all, to to be able to be assessed for any of these, you need an aged care assessment. And in your area, that is something that would be set up by either your doctor. You can go onto the My Aged Care website. An advocate can assist you with that as well, or family members can. Now that is required to be able to enable you to access government-funded aged care in Australia. There is about a 4-month wait list for that assessment. Once you receive an assessment, you'll be given referral codes to be able to access providers to be able to provide that care for you. Now, home care is a 12 to 18 month wait. So what might happen is you might receive a level 1 or 2 home care package, whereas you might require a 3 or 4 level home care package. So it's not sufficient for the amount of care that you're requiring. 12 to 18 months has seen many people not get their home care packages in time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it is a situation. The government are trying to help with that, but unfortunately it's just not quick enough. So therefore we've got residential respite and residential permanent care.
Oh, okay. So there are choices out there for people, which
Yes.
is great for the viewers to know when
Yes.
they're looking for. It's quite daunting for them to be doing all of this.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to find the right aged care facility, if you're in a situation where your loved one is requiring care, and I guess we can go into detail a little after the break as to how you go about accessing the care, and we'll talk about the types of care as well, because we can touch on dementia for one. So you might be living at home with a loved one who has dementia. Dementia can come in all types of have all types of behaviours or symptoms.
What would you say then about dementia or Alzheimer's? What about people having that?
So people living with dementia, now it used to be called Alzheimer's Australia. Now they've changed to Dementia Australia. It is one in the same. Dementia covers all types of dementia, and Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia. So that's to clarify that one. If somebody has dementia, a lot of people seem to think that their loved one needs to be in a locked environment. They can't live out in the mainstream area. A lot of families believe with having somebody that's living with dementia that once they go to aged care they're locked up or they're in a dementia secure unit. That's not necessarily true. Dementia secure units are there, but they're there to help any person living with dementia with extreme behaviours, or for somebody that believes they shouldn't be in care and might be at risk of absconding. Often when the facilities are run well, there's dementia, people living with dementia, they can live comfortably in the mainstream with other residents. It's when they get to a problem where they're being intrusive into other people's rooms, or they have verbal aggression or physical aggression, then that's a situation where they do need to be in a underwhelming environment, such as a memory support unit, or under specialist care, and that's certainly available to residents.
Oh, well, thank you for that clarification.
That's all right.
And for more on this subject and more, then please come back after the break. Hello and welcome back for more about aged care. And Pauline, do people actually choose aged care for themselves, or is it more about the family members?
People do. I would say the majority of people would be the family members. It could be the older sibling or the one living close by mum or dad, depending on who needs the care. I have had probably 10% of the clients that have chosen aged care for themselves, and they want to set up a pre-planning situation so that they've got their own choice and they know what they like, where they're going, and they don't want to cause any problem for their families. So that they're always a really good a placement, because they're the ones that know exactly what they want, you know, and the pre-planning is a key. So I think if we talked a little bit about today about the pre-planning, I think often families won't know when the right time is to start looking. As I said, we touched on it on the last segment, that home care or assessments can take, 6 to 18 months to get. And so I think it's always a good time to have that talk with your family. So communication is key. It's about...
Right, so I'm sorry to cut in. How would people go about speaking to the person about that?
Well, generally it leads on from seeing mum and dad at Christmas, or seeing your loved one. They might have lost a partner and they're living alone. So often you would start to see changes, and you might see that the meals that they used to cook, they're not cooking anymore, or, you might start to have to go over more often. Mum or dad might call you odd times of the day, and this can be a key to knowing whether or not they've got an early onset dementia. So this could go on from whether or not their needs are increasing. You might find that they might have been a really, really proud person and their house was always spotless, and then all of a sudden you kind of feel that, oh, you've seen mum and dad and the house is that little bit, it's just that edge, and you just know that things are changing. And so for that, I guess that would be the point where you would start that conversation with mum or dad and say that you've noticed. And if you have got the support of siblings, then it's always good to come together and make a time and plan ahead. So it's always, the communication is important.
Yes, that communication between family can be so difficult, can't it? I'm sure there's many viewers out there with those problems with their loved one, and with other family members.
Yeah, that's
with different
right.
opinions.
Yes, absolutely. It can be quite colourful at times. I think it's important. The important thing to remember is that no matter how many siblings, there's one key element, and that's their loved one. And most of the time, they will all feel the same way about that loved one, and they want the best for them. So what we try and do is bring that all together so that the families can get on the same page, and it's not about them, it's about their mum or their dad, and make sure that they're getting the best out of this. And yes, it can be very confusing and overwhelming for families. I mean, you've got families that work full time, you've got their children, their grandchildren. So there are people out there that can help with those situations as well, and also having the conversation. They are difficult conversations, but it's important to know, in the event of mum not being able to drive anymore, or in the event of mum having a fall at home, what does she want? Or, what is it that we need to put in place, mum, so that when the time comes, or if the time comes, and we're at an emotional end, we've got that plan so that we know what the steps are to take.
As sort of a takeaway from today, I suppose you could say, what would be some of the things that they could be top tips to look out for when looking?
So I guess some of the things that I think are really important for families to have in place. So firstly, I think the aged care assessment is the first and foremost. Second to that, I believe that we should have a power of attorney. So power of attorneys are required for anybody moving into aged care. There are a multitude of them. There's enduring, there's medical, there's guardianship and financial. You can again go to the website and there will be contacts that will be able to help you with that. But that's a definite necessity. And the next one would be to get some financial advice. So there's some top tips for you just to start the process.
Thank you, Pauline.
That's my pleasure.
And for more information on Pauline and aged care, then please go to our website. So thank you, viewers, for coming on board, and we'll see you next week on our program to talk more about the right facilities, about the costs involved in aged care, and about generally anything about aged care, really. So that'll be bye-bye for now, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.